Hi, Dorothea Hendricks here, your communication coach and presentation skills and the art of speaking. Today, we're going to look at 9 tips, 9 things that you can do to make sure that you have a successful question and answer session. So, questions and answer sessions, those are just, well, who doesn't have them? When you're a speaker giving a presentation, you'll have a question and answer session. When you're having a meeting, doing a business report, anything, there is always going to be a question and answer session. So here today, 9 tips. Tip number 1, let people know when you're going to be taking questions. Let them know, let your audience know. If you're being introduced, if there's a chairman, a host, someone introducing you, by all means, let them take the lead and prep your audience, prep the people who'll be listening to you, and let the audience know, hey, you know that our speaker will be taking questions at the end, or our speaker will be taking questions throughout his presentation, so toss them out if you have any questions. If you don't have anybody introducing you, then do it yourself and do it at the beginning of your presentation. Let people know you'll be taking questions at the end because you'll have a specific time for questions, or that you'll be taking it throughout. Tip number 2, stick to your guns. Stick to what you told people that what you told them. And that is, if you're taking questions at the end, then by golly, you take questions at the end. If you're taking them throughout your presentation, then you do that. If you told people you're taking questions at the end and somebody wants to ask you a question as you're about halfway through your presentation, you see them, you nod, you acknowledge them, and you just slide in the phrase, I'll be taking questions at the end. We'll have specific time for that. And then you move on with your presentation. Do not break down and answer their question, because you'll open up the floodgates and then you're going to have more people ask. And if you aren't comfortable being interrupted with questions, chances are it could throw your presentation off track. So if you told them you're going to be taking questions at the end, then by gosh, by golly, you do what you just told your audience you're going to do. You take them at the end. Tip number 3 is time is limited. Is there anybody on this planet that doesn't know time is limited? Especially when you're speaking. As a speaker, your time is limited. If you're holding a meeting, a budget report, it doesn't matter what it is. In the workplace, time is always limited. So we let people know the time is limited and how much time. So there'll be 15 minutes for our presentation, and we'll have a 5-minute question and answer session at the end. Our presentation will last for 30 minutes, and then we'll have a 10-minute time frame to take any questions that you may have at the end of this presentation. So let people know that time is limited and what that time is. Tip number 4, 1 question per person. This can sometimes be a challenge because we always have those people who have 4 questions or 3 questions all wrapped into one. So when someone like that asks you a 3-part question, pause, think about the question, and focus on the one part that you think is most important and ties in with your message. You don't need to answer all 3 parts. You answer one part. And this brings me to another step. Let people know that you're going to be taking 1 question per person until everybody has asked their question. And if there's time, then you'll take seconds. Now, if you only have 3 or 4 people, you're sitting in a meeting room discussing, I don't know, the budget or whatever it happens to be, onboarding some employees or something else, then of course it's ridiculous to say 1 question per person. There, you're going to be having a bit of a dialogue, some conversation, and it's quite acceptable to have a person ask 2 or 3 questions because you just have a very small group. The larger the group of people that you have that you're presenting to, the more important it is that you make sure that you cover as many questions as you possibly can. And that means 1 question per person until everybody's asked their first question, and then you can take a second round. Tip number 5, rephrase, repeat, restate, something. When somebody asks you a question, avoid just answering it. And sometimes, and I've been sitting in an audience, a speaker will be asked a question by somebody way on the other side of the room. I don't really hear the question. I don't hear the complete question. And the speaker will answer it and answer it in such a way that it takes me a while to figure out what was the question that was asked. So we don't want that to happen. Number one, that sucks up time. Number two, that can really distract an audience. And number three, it just might turn them off, right? So when a person asks a question, and it might be such as, in terms of payment for the product that you're selling, what do you think is, what does your company say is what they would like as payment? What's the best payment that your company wants from us if I'm going to purchase your product? What's the best form of payment my company takes? It's credit card. Visa, MasterCard, American Express. Next question. So now what we've done here is we've just taken a few phrases or a few words from that question and prefaced our answer so that everybody has an idea of what is it that I, the speaker, am answering. So that's tip number 5. Tip number 6, share your information with everyone. And man, I've been guilty of that, where somebody's asked me a question and I'm looking at the person, and then what I do is I answer looking at the person. No, what we want to do is we want to make sure when we're answering that we are sharing our information with everybody, because we need to keep these people engaged. We need to keep them connected to our presentation. And the best way of doing that is through eye contact and making sure that you're taking everybody into your view, because they're not necessarily interested in that question. So we need to do everything we can to keep them on board. The person who was interested in that question is the person who asked it. So always share your information with everybody. Number 7. I had to look at my list here. Number 7. Number 7 is be clear and be brief. Nothing upsets me personally, upsets me more, makes me want to blow a gasket, really just wants me to go throttle the speaker, is when the speaker is not clear, brief, and direct in answering a question. So let's go back to the previous question. What is the preferred method of payment that your company has? If I buy your product, how do you want me to pay? Our company prefers, when people buy their product, that they pay by Visa, MasterCard, American Express. Next question. Sometimes what happens is the person will answer, our company accepts credit card. We take a Visa, MasterCard, American Express. There was a time when we used to rely on check, or we did take e-transfers for a bit, and now they're going into a whole story of what they used to do, why they changed their approach, and why they are what they're doing today, taking credit card. We don't need it. We don't need it. We don't need it. People want brevity. People want simplicity. There's all kinds of distraction going on around me when I'm sitting bum in seat listening to a speaker. Fans are going, people are sneezing, wheezing, something gets dropped on the floor, my stomach is growling, something happened at home, somebody had a fender bender. I've got all kinds of things wheeling around in my head. I don't need to be taken down the garden path on why your company changed to taking charge cards, credit cards only. Give me the answer. My question was, what's your payment? Your answer should be, this is our payment. This is what we take. End of discussion. Next question. Number 8, point number 8, tip number 8 is have a question ready in your back pocket. There are times, I think it's happened to most of us, but there are times when you'll be going through a presentation, you'll finish, you'll slide into the question and answer session, and nobody will have any questions. It's just like, whoa, empty space, dead air. And what some speakers do sometimes, and I've heard this, and I go, oh, don't do that. Please don't do that. But they'll say, well, there are no questions. I guess, well, we'll just wrap up. Thanks so much for being here. And that's the end of the presentation. And you go, no, don't do that. Because there are always people who have questions. There are always questions somewhere. But sometimes people are afraid to get up. They're afraid to be the first. They're afraid maybe even to ask the question that they have. So as a speaker, it's really important that you have some questions in your back pocket. And you should have lots of questions that other people have asked you, questions that you've come up with yourself as you've gone through your presentation, delivered material. And it could be, you might say, sometimes people want to know, Or in the past, people have asked me, or one of the questions first when I began thinking about this particular message or this topic is, and then you're going to share that with your audience. Make sure that you have something, and so you have one or two questions. And if at that point nobody has any questions, then you can wrap up. Or if it encourages them to ask questions, well, then take your free questions and then wrap up. And that brings me to tip number 9. Never end on the Q&A. You're not going to be run out of town. No one is going to, put you on Facebook and call you bad names if you just end on the Q&A. But really, what was your reason here? Let's go back. What was your reason for giving this presentation? Why are these people sitting bums in seats listening to you? It was probably to get some instruction, some form of information, something that basically is supposed to benefit them, that is supposed to help them in their work situation, in their everyday life, help them be more prosperous, healthy, wealthy, whatever it is. But they came for a reason. And there is a key message that you, as the presenter, you have. And so that's what you wrap up on. You come back to your key message, the benefits of those key messages, or that key message, the benefit of that, and the action step they need to take to receive those benefits, to get that good stuff that you were sharing with them. Don't end on a Q&A. What kind of blah is that? I mean, that's empty space. That's a downer. Pick these people back up. If you've had an exciting Q&A, great, then add to the excitement. If the Q&A is kind of, wobbled a bit and slowed some of the excitement down, well, then you pick it up again. Come back to your message. Come back to your message. State that message, the benefits of the message, and what people can do to now, when they leave, what you want them to think, do, or feel, the action steps they can take. So those are our 9 tips here to running a successful Q&A. Number 1, let your audience know where you're going to be asking questions. Number 2, tell them, let them know and stick to what you told them. And number 3, be sure you let them know that time is limited. Number 4, 1 question per person. Number 5, paraphrase, rephrase, somehow repeat the question in an abbreviated form. Number 6, share your information with everyone. Number 7, be brief, be clear. Be simple. Number 8, have a question in your back pocket. And number 9, come back, wrap up on your message. Wrap up on your message and what you want people to do, to think, do, or feel as they're leaving that room. Those are the 9 tips. Until next time, this is Dorothea Hendricks wishing you mountains of success and happy speaking.